For Christmas, my parents gave my sister a new car in the backyard. Then they tossed a plastic bag of leftovers on the table to me. My dad took a sip of coffee, laughed, and said, "Santa doesn't reward losers." I just smiled and replied, "Guess I'll just have to find my own way." I made a move they didn't expect. 2 years later, they called every day sobbing, "Please come home. We're in disappearance." I never thought I'd be back living with my parents at 24. I mean, who does? It wasn't part of the plan. The plan was to finish college, get a decent job, maybe even get my own place. But life doesn't always go the way you expect. After 2 failed major changes, a bout of crushing depression, and losing my spot in the university program, I had nowhere else to go but back home. Back to my parents' house, or rather, back to my dad's house because, let's be honest, he was always the one in charge. My dad, Greg, has always been this larger-than-life figure. Loud, opinionated, the kind of guy who thinks his way is the only way. If you weren't living up to his idea of success, then you were just wasting your time. And in his eyes, I was wasting my life. Meanwhile, my younger sister Madison, 2 years younger, to be exact, was everything he ever wanted in a child. Smart, driven, confident, and always the center of attention. Greg loved telling anyone who would listen how Madison took after him, how she had that go-getter attitude. And whenever I was around, he'd throw these little jabs like, "Some people know how to make something of themselves," or "Not everyone gets it right the first time, huh, Tom?" Mom, Sarah, was a different story. Quiet, soft-spoken, and always trying to keep the peace. But keeping the peace in our house meant going along with whatever Greg wanted. If he was praising Madison, she'd smile and nod. If he was taking digs at me, she'd look away, pretending she hadn't heard. I don't even know if she ever had an opinion of her own. Or maybe she just learned a long time ago that it was easier to stay quiet. Christmas morning was already weird. I woke up to the sound of my parents whispering in the kitchen, which was a huge red flag. My dad is never quiet. His voice usually fills every room he's in, whether you want it to or not. But that morning, he was speaking in hushed tones, and I could hear my mom's voice, low and tense, responding. I couldn't make out what they were saying, but my stomach twisted with that familiar sense of dread. I came downstairs, and there was Madison, already up and dressed, her hair perfectly done, full makeup on, scrolling through her phone like she was waiting for a photo shoot. She barely looked up when I entered. Dad turned to me with this huge grin, the kind that's just a little too wide to be real. "There he is, the man of the hour," he boomed. I blinked, confused. "What's that supposed to mean?" He just laughed it off. "Oh, you'll see. It's Christmas, Tommy. Time for surprises." Mom was at the stove pouring coffee, but she didn't even look at me. She just handed me a mug without a word. Normally, she'd at least say good morning, but this time, nothing. I tried to shake off the weird feeling crawling up my spine. Maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe I was just being paranoid. We all sat around the kitchen table. Madison was barely pretending to be interested, tapping her nails against her phone case in this rhythmic, irritating way. Dad kept making little comments. "Some people know how to work hard for what they want," he'd say, pointedly looking at Madison, who would smile like she'd won something. I tried to keep my focus on the coffee, tried to keep my mouth shut. I didn't want to fight. I just wanted the day to be over. After a while, Dad stood up, placed a hand on Madison's shoulder, and said, "All right, let's do this." Madison's face lit up. She jumped out of her chair, and they headed toward the front door. I followed, still clutching my coffee, trying to figure out what was going on. When Dad pulled the door open, I felt my stomach drop. There, in the driveway, was a brand new car. Not a used clunker, a brand new, shiny, red sedan with a giant red bow on the hood. Madison screamed. I mean, full-on screamed, and then launched herself at Dad, hugging him and shrieking, "Oh my God, thank you, thank you." She was already pulling her phone out, snapping pictures, doing that fake surprised face thing for her Instagram story. I just stood there. Like an idiot. Because of course, this wasn't a surprise for both of us. Of course not. My parents hadn't even bothered pretending it was. It was for her. Only for her. Dad turned to me, still grinning, and said, "Well, Tommy, you know Santa doesn't reward losers." He actually said that. Just like that. With that smug little laugh, like he'd just told the funniest joke in the world. I felt something inside me snap. "Are you serious?" I heard myself say, but my voice sounded far away, muffled under the roaring in my ears. Dad shrugged, completely unfazed. "Hey, maybe if you start acting like a real adult, you'll get something better next year." Mom was just standing there, smiling, like this was all perfectly normal. Like watching one child be showered with praise and gifts while the other was openly humiliated was just fine. And then she handed me this plastic grocery bag from the fridge. "Here you go, Tommy," she said, her voice as bland as ever. "Thought you might want this later." I looked inside. Leftovers. Cold ham. Mashed potatoes. Some soggy green beans. I was supposed to feel grateful for this. For their pity scraps. Like I was some stray dog they were tossing a bone to. Madison was already in the car, revving the engine, blasting her music, waving to her phone's camera. Probably already posting about her amazing Christmas surprise to her followers. She didn't even look at me. I turned back to Dad, who was sipping his coffee, smiling like he'd just delivered some life lesson I was supposed to learn from. And that's when I lost it. I didn't plan it. I didn't even think. I just threw the plastic bag back onto the kitchen table. It knocked over Dad's coffee mug, the hot liquid spreading across the table, staining the Christmas-themed tablecloth. Dad's face darkened instantly. He stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor, and suddenly he was in my face, his voice low and threatening. "You think you deserve anything?" he spat. "You've never done anything for this family. You just take. A failure and a leech." I don't remember exactly what I yelled back. Something about how I was done with them. Done with being treated like garbage. I told him I'd rather be homeless than spend another second in that house. And he laughed. Actually laughed. And said, "Go ahead, Tommy. Let's see how long you last." My hands were shaking. My heart was racing so fast I thought I might pass out. But I didn't. I turned around, walked straight out the front door, didn't even bother grabbing a jacket. Just my phone and my wallet, shoved into the pocket of my jeans. Behind me, I heard my mom's voice, a little softer, almost pleading, "Tommy, don't be dramatic. Come back inside." But she didn't follow. Nobody did. I walked down the driveway, past Madison's new car, where she was still taking selfies, the music so loud I could hear it from the street. I walked and I walked and I walked with no idea where I was going. Just that I wasn't going to stay there another second. After about an hour, I texted my old friend Oliver, asking if I could crash at his place. I didn't give him any details, just told him I needed a place to stay. He didn't ask questions, just texted back, "Sure, man, come over." So that's how I spent Christmas night. Alone on a beat-up couch in Oliver's basement, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing, a knot of anger and shame twisted tight in my chest. That's how Christmas went down at my house. And I thought that was the worst of it. I had no idea it was just the beginning. I spent that first night at Oliver's place lying on his basement couch, staring at the cracked ceiling, trying to process what had just happened. The rage was still there, a hot, pulsing knot in my chest, but now it was mixing with something else, something emptier. Humiliation. Disbelief. It wasn't just about the car or the leftovers, it was about the way they looked at me. Like I was some kind of disappointment they had to tolerate, a failed side quest in their perfect little family story. Oliver didn't ask too many questions. I think he could tell from the way I just collapsed onto the couch that I wasn't ready to talk. He tossed me a blanket, mumbled something about making sure the basement door was locked, and disappeared upstairs. For a while, I just lay there in the darkness, the only light coming from the faint glow of the basement window. My phone buzzed a few times, notifications from Instagram where Madison had already posted a video of her Christmas miracle car with a caption full of glittering emojis. I turned the phone off. I didn't need to see it. The next morning, Oliver came down with 2 mugs of coffee and a kind of awkward half-smile. "You okay, man?" he asked, finally breaking the silence. I shook my head. "Not really. You gonna call your parents?" "Nope," I said, staring into the black coffee. "Not unless they call first." "Fair enough," he muttered, and that was the end of it. At least with him. But that was just the start. For the next few days, I tried to focus on finding a job, anything to keep me busy, to keep me from just sitting in that dark basement, replaying Christmas morning in my head over and over again. I swiped through gig apps, scrolled through job boards, applied to retail, fast food, anything that paid. I called a few places, tried to sound confident, but most of them didn't even call back. On day 3, I checked my phone, expecting at least a text from my mom. Nothing. No missed calls. No messages. It wasn't that I expected an apology, but I guess I thought. I don't know. Something. Instead, my mom was posting on Facebook happy photos of Madison and her new car, big captions about how proud they were of her. Like I didn't even exist. I showed the post to Oliver and he just gave me this look. Dude, that's messed up. Yeah, I mumbled. I know. A few days later, my Aunt Rebecca called. She had seen the Facebook post and wanted to check if I was okay. I told her what had happened, just the basics. Christmas, the car, the leftovers, the fight. She didn't even sound surprised. Yeah, your dad's always been hard on you, she said gently. I always thought it was just his way of pushing you to do better, but this. I don't know. It doesn't seem right. It felt good to hear someone else say it, but it also made it feel more real. Like I wasn't just being dramatic. Like I wasn't just overreacting. I didn't go back. Not even to pick up my stuff. It wasn't like I had much anyway, just some clothes, a few books, and an old laptop that barely worked. If they wanted to keep it, they could have it. The longer I stayed away, the more I started to see things clearly. This wasn't just about the car. It wasn't just about the leftovers. It was about a lifetime of being the second choice, the disappointment, the one who never quite lived up to the family's golden image. And now, without even realizing it, I was free from it. But that freedom was terrifying. I had no job, no place of my own, and no idea what I was going to do next. I knew I couldn't stay on Oliver's couch forever. He was being cool about it, but I could tell he was getting a little nervous too. So I doubled down on job hunting. I walked into every shop and cafe in town, filling out applications, trying to look like someone they'd want to hire. Eventually, I landed a part-time gig at a local grocery store. It wasn't much minimum wage, long hours on my feet, but it was something. I started saving every penny I could, barely spending anything beyond food. I ate instant noodles and canned soup, borrowed Oliver's Wi-Fi, and just tried to keep my head down. But it wasn't enough. I needed a real place of my own. After a few weeks, I managed to find a crappy little apartment I could afford if I shared it with 2 other guys. It was tiny, barely big enough for the 3 of us, and the kitchen was basically just a counter with a microwave. But it was mine, well, ours, and it was away from them. Still no word from my parents. Not even a text to ask if I was okay. The only thing I got was a notification that they had removed me from the family phone plan. I wasn't even surprised. I just switched to a cheap prepaid plan and kept going. But what really got to me wasn't the silence, it was the lies. I started hearing from cousins and aunts, people asking why I wasn't around anymore, why I wasn't talking to my parents. It didn't take long to figure out that my dad was telling everyone I was lazy, that I refused to work, that I was just wasting my life. At first, I wanted to call him and scream at him to tell him he was a liar. But then I realized something. He needed me to be the failure. It made his story work. It made him the tough, loving father who just wanted the best for his kids. Madison was the success and I was the cautionary tale. So I decided I wasn't going to fight him. Not like that. I wasn't going to post some dramatic rant on Facebook. I wasn't going to text him 1,000 angry messages. I was just going to live. I was going to get my own life together and I was going to do it without them. And I was going to make sure everyone saw it. Slowly, I started telling my side of the story. Not in some bitter, angry way, just the facts. When Aunt Rebecca asked if I was okay, I told her the truth. When my cousin Mike wondered why I wasn't at the last family gathering, I told him straight, I'm not welcome. The more I told the truth, the more I realized something else. People believed me. I wasn't just the problem child in the family narrative anymore. I was becoming someone with his own voice, someone who wasn't afraid to stand up for himself. And it was just the beginning. Things didn't get better right away. Actually, they got worse before they got better. But I was learning something important. Survival isn't always pretty. Sometimes it's about grit, about holding on even when everything in you screams to give up. I was still scraping by at the grocery store, pulling extra shifts whenever I could get them. My roommates were decent guys, messy, loud, but decent. We all knew we were just there because life had kicked us around a bit. Our place was a cramped little box with paper-thin walls, a leaky faucet that never stopped dripping, and a fridge that sounded like a dying lawnmower every time it kicked on. But it was mine, well, ours, and I wasn't under my father's thumb anymore. I was starting to find a rhythm. Work, save money, keep my head down. But even as I was trying to build something of my own, the shadow of my family hung over me. My dad, Greg, wasn't just ignoring me, he was actively trashing me to everyone in the family. I started getting these weird messages from cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. Hey, are you okay? Your dad said you're struggling. One even asked if I needed money, which almost made me laugh because that's not how my family worked. I knew what was going on. Greg was rewriting the narrative. In his version, I wasn't a young guy trying to build a life after a rough start. I was the lazy, ungrateful son who turned his back on his family. The problem child. The embarrassment. Madison was still the perfect daughter, at least on the surface. Pictures of her with her new car kept popping up on my feed. Big smile, perfect makeup, captions about hard work paying off. I didn't react at first. I just tried to focus on my own life. But the lies started to spread. I overheard one of my aunts telling another, "It's such a shame about Tommy. Greg tried so hard with him." And that's when I realized if I didn't start telling my side, the only version anyone would ever hear would be his. So I started talking. Not in some dramatic, attention-seeking way. Just the truth. When Aunt Rebecca asked if I was coming to the next family dinner, I told her flat out, not unless they invite me, which they won't. When my cousin Mike messaged me asking if I needed help finding a job, I told him, already working, thanks. Haven't asked them for a thing. And word spread. Not like wildfire, but like slow, steady smoke. People started seeing me differently. Not as the screw-up, but as someone who was trying to make his own way despite everything. I think what really shocked me was how many people weren't surprised by the truth. "Yeah, your dad's always been hard on you," my Uncle Ben told me one night over beers. I always thought it was a bit much, but you know, family. But I wasn't done. I wasn't just going to sit back while Greg tried to turn me into his scapegoat. I started helping out family members, not out of obligation, but because I wanted them to see who I really was. When my cousin Sarah's laptop broke, I spent an afternoon fixing it. When Aunt Rebecca needed someone to help clean out her garage, I showed up. Quietly, without making a big deal, I became the one they could count on. Not Greg's lazy, ungrateful son, just Tom. And it wasn't just family. I started being more deliberate on social media too. Not in some petty, attention-seeking way, but by just being me. I'd share little updates, photos from a hike I went on, a new recipe I tried, funny moments with my roommates. Nothing flashy, nothing fake. Just my real life without the constant shadow of my father's voice. Madison was the first to notice. Her posts started to change. Less of the glossy, perfect selfies and car pics, more vague, cryptic quotes about fake people and betrayal. I'd have ignored it if she hadn't started texting me. First it was random, dumb stuff, "Hey, can you pay me back for that one time I covered you?" I ignored it. Then it was more direct. "Why are you telling people all this stuff about Dad? It's making him look bad." I didn't bother replying. But Greg didn't stay quiet for long. He started texting me too. At first, it was this fake fatherly concern. "Hey, Tommy, just checking in. Hope you're doing okay." I didn't answer. Then it turned into guilt-tripping. "Family is supposed to stick together, you know. Your mother's really upset. Can't you at least talk to her?" Finally, the mask came off. He left me a voicemail, this long, angry rant about how I was ruining the family's reputation, how I was ungrateful and disrespectful. I listened to the whole thing once, then saved it. Not because I needed it, I didn't. I just wanted a reminder of how quickly his concern turned to rage. But I wasn't just stonewalling them. I was strategic. I made sure the people who actually mattered, the ones who weren't just Greg's yes men, knew the truth. I didn't trash him. I didn't call him a monster. I just told them what happened. Christmas, the car, the leftovers, the humiliation. How they didn't even try to reach out after I left. How they spread lies about me to cover their own guilt. And it worked. The story changed. Slowly, but it did. People started to see me for who I was. I wasn't the loser they wanted me to be. I was just a guy trying to make it on his own. A guy who refused to let his family's lies define him. But the best part? The part that I still get a little thrill thinking about? I wasn't the only one struggling. Greg's perfect family image was cracking. Madison crashed her precious car twice. The insurance skyrocketed and my parents were struggling to keep up with the payments. I didn't celebrate it. I wasn't that petty. But I wasn't going to swoop in and save them either. I was done being their scapegoat. Done being the one they blamed for everything. I was building my own life, little by little, and every time they tried to pull me back into their drama, I just kept walking forward. I never expected them to understand. They had their version of the story, and I had mine. But this time, I wasn't just letting them write it for me. This time, I was telling the truth. You know how they say the truth always comes out? I never really believed that until I saw it happen in real time. The cracks in my family's perfect image didn't just appear, they widened into full-blown fractures. And for the first time, I wasn't the one trying to keep it all together. It started with a phone call. Not to me, I had my parents' numbers blocked by that point. No, this was from my cousin Mike. "Hey man, I just wanted to check if you're okay. Your mom's been calling around, saying some pretty wild stuff. I didn't know what to say at first. Wild like what? Like they're about to lose the house. Like your sister's back home and they're struggling. I don't know, dude. Just thought you should know. I should have felt something: shock, anger, maybe even pity. But mostly I just felt nothing. It was like hearing about some strangers in trouble. I thanked Mike, hung up, and sat there in my tiny, cluttered apartment, just staring at the wall. Part of me was waiting for the guilt to hit, that familiar pang that always came whenever I thought about them. But it didn't come. Not this time. Over the next few weeks, I started hearing more and more. My parents were defaulting on their mortgage payments. Madison's car insurance was eating them alive. Turns out her perfect image didn't include actually being a good driver. And they were reaching out to everyone, anyone who might help. Everyone except me. Because asking me for help would mean admitting they were wrong. Then one day, I got a text from Madison. A wall of text, actually. Tom, this is getting ridiculous. Dad's freaking out, Mom won't stop crying, and it's like everyone's blaming me now. I thought you were done with all this drama. Can you please just come talk to them? Make them understand? They listen to you even if they won't admit it. I didn't reply. What was there to say? I wasn't their peacemaker. I wasn't their backup plan. They had made their choice to push me out, to make me the failure, the problem. Now they were stuck in the mess they'd created. A week later, I ran into Mrs. Hargrove, our old neighbor, at the grocery store. Her expression was somewhere between pity and curiosity. Oh, Tommy, I didn't know you were back in town. Your mom told me you were traveling, living this exciting life. I laughed before I could stop myself. Traveling? Yeah, if you count traveling between shifts at the grocery store. Her eyes widened. I thought, well, your mom always posts these lovely photos. Madison with her car, your father's big family dinners. I shrugged. Yeah, that's the version they like people to see. That's when it really hit me. My parents were still trying to keep up the facade even as everything fell apart behind closed doors. They couldn't even be honest about their own problems. But they couldn't keep up the lie forever. The next time I heard from them, it wasn't through social media or gossip. It was a knock on my door. I opened it and there was my dad. He didn't look like the loud, confident man I remembered. His hair was grayer, his face gaunt, eyes sunken. For a second, I didn't even recognize him. Tommy, he said, his voice cracking. We need to talk. I didn't move. Didn't invite him in. About what? Your mother, she's not doing well. We're not doing well. He looked at the ground, struggling for words. We're losing the house. Madison, she can't help, and we need you. It was almost funny. They needed me. After everything, the insults, the rejection, the way they twisted the story to make me look like the villain. Now they were here, begging? Why me? I asked, not bothering to hide the bitterness in my voice. You have a perfect daughter. A perfect life. You told everyone I was the problem. So fix it without me. He flinched, and for a moment I thought he might yell. But instead, he just stood there, shoulders slumped. Tommy, please? I know I was hard on you. I thought I was pushing you to be better. I didn't see how much I was hurting you. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to think this was some kind of breakthrough. But I'd seen this before, the fake apologies, the desperate promises. It was always the same. They didn't want me back because they cared. They wanted me because they needed me. Because their image was falling apart without me to blame. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. But I can't help you. I closed the door. Locked it. Leaned against it, feeling my heart pounding in my chest. For the first time, I wasn't just walking away. I was standing my ground. That wasn't the end, of course. They tried again. My mom left a sobbing voicemail saying she didn't understand how I could be so cruel. Madison texted me, accusing me of abandoning them, of being selfish. I blocked her. I didn't even feel guilty. But the biggest surprise came a few months later. I got a message from Aunt Rebecca. Your parents lost the house. They're staying with Madison. It's bad, Tommy. They don't talk to anyone. I thought you should know. I didn't reply. I didn't know what I was supposed to say. They had burned every bridge with me, and now they were drowning. I didn't wish them harm, but I didn't feel sorry for them either. Slowly, life got quieter. The angry texts stopped. The phone calls dried up. I kept working, kept saving. I even started taking classes again, this time part-time, paying for them myself. I was building something brick by brick without them. Sometimes, I still get this tight feeling in my chest, like I'm supposed to feel bad, like I'm supposed to fix it. But then I remember all those Christmases, all those little insults, all those moments where I was nothing but a disappointment to them. And I let that feeling go. The last I heard, Madison had moved back in with my parents. who were living in a cramped apartment, struggling to keep up with bills. My dad doesn't talk to most of the family anymore. My mom barely posts on Facebook. They wanted to teach me a lesson that I was a failure. But the truth is, they taught me something else. They taught me that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up, who cares, who has your back when everything goes wrong. I used to think I needed their approval to be happy. But I don't. I never did. I don't hate them. I don't even want revenge. I just want to live my life away from their chaos, away from their judgment. And I'm doing it, one step at a time.